Hey, brother, welcome to the Lead Your Wife podcast. And if you're like, I don't even know what that means, well, then you're in the right place because I struggled with that for decades. And it wasn't until I figured it out that things started falling into place inside my marriage. And today we're going to talk about your responsibility as the CIO of your marriage, the chief initiating officer inside your marriage. And here's the thing, man. Every one of us loves it when our wife initiates behind closed doors. It's kind of a wonderful feeling to be wanted and ravaged that way. But what I also want to tell you is that if you sink into that, and I'm going to call it what it is, man. It is a feminine trait. And the most masculine of men are probably offended right now. They're like, man, I'm squatting, I'm deadlifting, I'm benching, I'm overhead pressing, I'm stronger than 90-something% of the men on the planet. Yeah, well, me too, brother. But let me tell you something. When I lay back and I wait for my wife to initiate, it is a feminine behavior because men initiate. Men take action. Men cause things to happen. Men create certainty. Men are the builders. Men are the ones who cause things to happen. You know it's true, man. If you're listening to this, you know it's true. But it's not just behind closed doors that I'm talking about. It is your job to initiate the romantic times in your marriage. It is not hers. It is your job to initiate the tender moments in your marriage, not hers. It is your job to initiate communication and long talks about important subjects without distraction in your marriage. It is not her. And when things go wrong, whether you're wrong or whether she's wrong, or no matter who you believe is right or wrong, it is your job to initiate the repair of the relationship because it is your job to initiate the ongoing maintenance of the relationship. It is your job to initiate everything in this marriage. It is your job to initiate eating better. It is your job to initiate exercise. It is your job to initiate spiritual growth. It is your job to initiate financial growth. It is your job to initiate the relationship and the emotional intelligence and capability inside the marriage with your kids, outside the marriage, with your extended families, with people who you know and people who touch and influence your marriage. It is your job to influence every part and piece of this because you are the man. Masculine men listening to this know that I'm talking about something that is true. They know it resonates. You understand this. So let me ask you something, man. Why do you let issues fester in your marriage? Why do you let some kind of argument that pulls the two of you apart? Why do you let it fester for minutes or hours or days or weeks before you initiate repair? And then there's a lot of guys, they never even initiate repair. What happens is the relationship, there's a tear in the relationship. And once that relationship is torn, they don't do anything to initiate the repair. And what ends up happening is it gets swept under the rug, throw a little mud on it, rub a little dirt on it. But the problem is it's broken in your wife's mind and it's never going to be resolved. And then guys are like, Bob, why is it that I have to hear 5, 10, 15, 20 years later about how I didn't open the car door when it was raining or how I didn't pick up her purse when she spilled it in the mud puddle or whatever? It is because when that happened, there was a tear in the relationship. And go listen to all my stuff, man. As an adversarial advocate, she was giving you a course correction that if she felt loved like Christ was loving his church, in other words, unconditional, self-sacrificial, ready to suffer for and forgiving when it's not returned, agape kind of love, you did not hold the door for her in the rain, you did not help her pick up her purse when it spilled in the mud puddle, and you did not initiate repair of that fracture. And so that fracture remains. And inside the mind of a woman, she doesn't forget it, man. She's got a photographic memory. It's never going to be resolved until it's resolved. And it actually grows. That tear grows a little bit more and it grows a little bit more and it grows a little bit more. And if you do not initiate repair, what's going to happen is it's going to continue to grow. And now it's going to start touching other fractures. And then the purse comes one and the door comes another. And the way you snapped at her is another. And the way you ignored her is another. And the way that you pouted after she turned you down for sex is another. And this goes on and this goes on and this goes on until it looks like a car window that's been hit with a hammer. There's so many fractures, man. The thing is just ready to just collapse inside itself. And then it collapses inside itself and you end up on my calendar saying, Bob, how do I put all this back together? And what I want to tell you, man, is don't let it fall apart in the first place. If you want to know how to not make it fall apart in the first place, you initiate repair. And you don't let your pride and your ego sit back and say, it wasn't me, it was her. Maybe it was her, man. Maybe it was. Maybe you were perfect. Maybe God smiled on you and he said, I'm going to give you 1 minute to understand how perfect it can be to be as perfect as Jesus. And I'm going to give you this 1 moment on earth. Now, we both know that that's a bunch of nonsense, but just hypothetically stay with me here. And in this perfect moment, she comes up to you and she accuses you of something that there is no chance of being true because Jesus just gave you a minute of perfection. What do you think happens to your perfection when your wife comes to you sinful and wrong and you pull away, you turn your back? Your moment of perfection is gone, man. No, I'm not saying that when you sin, Jesus apologizes to you. But what I'm saying is when you sin, Jesus remains open to you. He remains warm with you. He remains loving and kind and caring and compassionate and forgiving. And so, knowing that you can't be perfect, knowing that the way that we both interpret this, she may think that she was perfect and you may think that you were perfect and you're at this impasse in your marriage. Which is the strong man? Is it the strong man who says, I've got big enough shoulders? That's right, I do overhead press. I've got big enough shoulders. I do lateral raises. I can take it. I will go to her and I will apologize for any misunderstanding that I had. I will be the first to move. I will create certainty. I will take a stand. I will initiate bold and courageous action like a man. And I will invite her into a space that is open and warm and kind and caring and loving and appreciative and forgiving and seeing the best in her and giving her the benefit of the doubt and forgiving her 1,000 times a second so that I can look at her without spot or wrinkle. I can look at her as though she is perfect. Is that the strong man or is that the weak man? And which is the guy who is like, I know she is, but what am I? I know she is, but what am I? She started it. Mom, she's doing it again. Mom, tell her to stop touching me. Because that's who's in control, man. That's who's in control if you are not taking that bold initiative action. Is this fair? Absolutely not. Was it fair that Jesus had to go to the cross for me? And for you, and for your wife, and for my wife, and everyone else on the planet? Absolutely not. Did he complain about it? No, he did not. Like a man, like the most masculine of men, he did his duty. He fulfilled his responsibilities and his obligation. He took a stand. He created certainty. He initiated bold and courageous action. And like a man, he repaired the relationship between his Father and every one of us. We are called in Ephesians 5:25 to do the same, brother. Like a man, stand up, be initiative, take bold, courageous action, create certainty, and take a stand for your marriage and repair that marriage every single time there's a tiny fracture. That is how you lead your wife as the chief initiating officer. And it doesn't just mean in the arguments, it's in every room of the house, brother. And every once in a while, when she initiates any of this stuff, you can praise Jesus and you can sink back and you can realize that you're losing a little bit of your man card when she's doing it. And it feels good. I'll be the first one to tell you. You know it too. Do not ever continually rely on your wife to initiate on either side of the bedroom door, whether it's repairing the marriage so she even wants to be on the other side of that bedroom door with you, or it's once you get in there. I was watching this movie the other night. There was this division between a man and a woman. They were not speaking. They were both stuck in their ways. She went up and she initiated the repair. Up until that point, that guy had been so incredibly masculine. And yes, man, I do watch chick flicks. It's what I do for a living. I call it continuing education credit. Because when I'm watching it, here's what I'm doing. I'm taking notes. And I'm like, this guy did everything right up until that point. And at the end of the movie, it completely emasculates him because he has to wait for his wife to come repair the relationship. Come on, man. Whoever wrote that thing was probably a woman. It was not a masculine man. That movie would have had a perfect ending if that guy, like a man, would have gone up and initiated the repair of the relationship. So let your movie have a perfect ending, my brother. If there's a rift, if there's a divide, if there's a block of ice or an ocean between you and your wife, be a man and go repair it. And if you don't know how to do that, then come work with me at www.realmanrevolution.com, www.realmanrevolution.com, and I'll see you on the other side.